If the previous episode taught me anything, it taught me that I should probably make better financial decisions. So I went and bought another one. This story starts in my old storage unit up in Hagerstown, Maryland, which at the time I was using to consolidate all of my project cars and their spare parts as I was preparing to move into my first home. And with such a move, I wanted to make sure that everything that I owned could move under its own power, or at least onto a trailer by itself, which meant this 1997 Miata I had been sitting on for about a year had to go. So I listed it on Facebook Marketplace with the hopes that someone would be interested in trading for literally anything that ran. And while I got a few interesting offers here and there, nothing really stuck out to me until one day I got a message from a guy up in New York that had a 1985 Nissan 720 ST, very similar to the red one that I had available for trade, except this one was an extended cab 5-speed. And if you watched episodes 1 and 2 with the red truck, you were probably as equally devastated as I was to find out how unsalvageable the body of that truck was, and I really wanted to know what it was like to drive and own one, so I accepted their trade. Now here's where the trade gets really interesting. I listed this Miata as non-running because I spent about a year trying to get it to turn over with no success. I put a new head on it, I checked the firing order, I checked the timing, I tried spraying ether, and it just would not start. And I even plugged in an OBD2 reader, and there was no codes, it was talking to the ECU fine. So really, there was no reason it shouldn't start, and I was just tired of it. I wanted it out of my storage unit. And as much as I wanted a Miata, I also really wanted a Nissan 720. So on the trailer it went. Now the trip up to New York was fairly uneventful, so instead of a boring travel montage, here's a fun fact about Miatas. If you rapidly depress the headlight up and down button, the headlights will start to go up and down out of sync from one another, which creates this hilarious winking effect. I immediately shared this information with the new owner upon arriving to New York, and I proceeded to watch them flick the headlights up and down the entire time I loaded the truck onto the trailer. So it was good to see the new owner already getting some enjoyment out of the non-running car I just spent 6 hours driving up to deliver. The drive back was also uneventful. We did stop in Bridgeport, Connecticut to say hi to my friend, but we didn't stay long because there isn't really many places you can park a truck and trailer in Bridgeport or anywhere in Connecticut for that matter. So we just grabbed some food from a local fast food chain and then headed straight back to Virginia. With it being 2020, registration was appointment only, so for the first few months I just ran farm tags since I was in Virginia, even though I didn't own a farm. And with that, I did not drive it far, so I couldn't really drive the truck around and find many problems, but one of the first problems I found was an issue with the fuel pump cutting in and out. The fuel pump went out at some point. It was just a wire actually, but I looked under and noticed all the fuel lines were rotted. I replaced those, but I just wanted to add to the thing I was saying about this truck being in really good shape. Look at this cab, there's no rust, at least not any rust that's really a threat to the structural integrity or repairability of the truck. This fuel tank has almost no rust on it. There's a lot of dirt on it, but that's because it was from a dry state. I think this was from Oregon. It spent a lot of its time in Oregon before it ended up on the East Coast here. And then this frame is in phenomenal shape. I mean, this is a survivor truck. This would be the perfect frame. Well, the whole thing's in really good shape. I mean, this is the perfect candidate for a restoration. After repairing the fuel pump issues, the truck ran great for several weeks until something started happening with the carburetor. While leaving the neighborhood to go to Home Depot, something appeared to let go, for lack of a better term, sending the RPMs to redline. At first I suspected the throttle might have stuck open, but upon further investigation I could not come to a conclusion as to what it could be other than a possible vacuum leak. So the next step of diagnostics was to delete the entire California emission system and plug all of the vacuum lines on the carburetor to eliminate as many variables as possible. But unfortunately, this did not solve the problem. My next theory is that something like the float might be stuck, but disassembly and reassembly of the carburetor returned no issues. The only thing I can see that doesn't look quite right is the secondary dumping copious amounts of fuel into the carburetor throat. So with that, I started to seek out other options. I had the parts truck with the same carburetor. However, that truck was full of bees, so I'd have to wait till winter to deal with that, or risk getting stung doing a little pest removal. So I reached out to Mike over at Fuzzy Dice Projects to see if he had any ideas. And it turns out he had a couple Weber carburetors from a former Datsun project that were just laying around that I could take and play around with. So that's what I ended up doing. And in order to make the carburetor fit, I had to buy this $40 adapter plate from Summit Racing and modify the mounting holes for the intake manifold side. And then it was time to test it to make sure that it was jetted properly for this application. Also be ready to shut it off if I scream. Alright, ready? Crank it. Dude, that made it woke. After a couple days of driving around, I was satisfied with the performance of the carburetor, so I went and ordered a chrome air cleaner for it, which with the carburetor adapter didn't quite fit under the hood, so I had to cut a little bit of the hood away to fit everything with the hood closed. After about a month, I felt confident enough to take it on a small road trip to Ocean City, about 4 hours away, and then to Cambridge, Maryland, where my friend could do a little bit of body work on it before I could paint it. I don't know what this truck went through in its past life, but it had a lot of dents on the doors and the truck bed, but it didn't have any damage that suggested any kind of on-road collision with another vehicle. So with the fuel system, carburetor, and body issues fixed, the truck is a lot closer to being ready for paint and a few possible performance upgrades in the future. However, I have ran into another more serious problem since filming this video. It appears as though the rear main seal on the engine is leaking, as the clutch is kind of boogered up and oil is leaking from the back of the engine. But with almost 300,000 miles on the clock, an issue like this really isn't unexpected. I'm just glad it hasn't become bad enough that the truck has become undrivable in the meantime. It just means I can't drive it too far from home due to the risk of complete oil loss or clutch failure. But that issue is something to be addressed in a future video. And with that, I think I will end the video here. I thank everyone for watching this. If you're returning, welcome back. I know it's been a long year since I put out a proper car video. I finally got moved in. I meant to edit this a lot sooner, but I've been sick for about 2 months, and I've just got my voice back to narration ability. And the house is finally mechanically sound enough that I have my weekends back. for the most part. So with that being said, we'll see you in the next video.